President Yoon Suk Yeol is poised to become the first Korean leader to make a state visit to the Netherlands that will include efforts to bolster partnerships on several fronts, including semiconductors, sustainable energy, and high-tech industry. So what is the history of diplomatic relations between Korea and the Netherlands? What are the broader implications of a chip alliance between Korea and the Netherlands? And what are the prospects of bilateral efforts on the security front? Hope your work week is off to a good start. You're watching Monday's edition of Issues and Insiders. I'm Min Sun-hee. Today we address President Yoon Suk Yeol's upcoming agenda in the Netherlands and more. For this, I have Professor Min Jeong-hun from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy here in the studio. Professor Min, it's a pleasure.
Good afternoon.
I also have Kwon Soa with us. Soa, welcome back.
Good to be here, Sunny.
Right, let's start off, Soa, with details about President Yoon Suk Yeol's agenda in the Netherlands this week.
Sure. So President Yoon Suk Yeol and First Lady Kim Kwon-hee will be on a 4-day trip to the Netherlands starting this Monday. It's a state visit coming at the invitation of Dutch King Willem-Alexander, and it is the first state visit by a South Korean president to the Northern European nation since the two countries established diplomatic ties in 1961. And the focus of the trip is going to be on forging a chip alliance and deepening their strategic partnership. So if we go through his schedule a little bit, on Monday afternoon, upon arrival, President Yoon will meet with Korean residents in the Netherlands capital, Amsterdam. And on Tuesday, his official state visit schedule is going to kick off with a welcome ceremony hosted by the King and Queen Maxima, followed by a reception at the Royal Palace, laying a wreath at a war memorial, and a friendly luncheon with the King and Queen. Now, later in the day is the highlight of President Yoon's trip, a visit to the headquarters of ASML, a leading Dutch semiconductor equipment producer, which is the world's only manufacturer of extreme ultraviolet lithography machines. Now, this is important because these machines are crucial in making advanced chips. President Yoon and the Dutch King will tour key facilities with Peter Venink, the company's chief executive, and will also be accompanied by Samsung Electronics Executive Chairman Lee Jae-yong and SK Group Chairman Choi Tae-won, who are traveling with the president. President Yoon is reportedly the first foreign leader who will also be taking a look inside the so-called clean room manufacturing facility. Tuesday will conclude with a state banquet where President Yoon and the King are expected to hold speeches. Now, on Wednesday, the president is scheduled to hold a bilateral summit with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. Yoon is also slated to take part in economic and cultural events, including a business forum and a meeting with Dutch veterans who participated in the Korean War.
Right.
And then on Thursday, he's going to depart back to Korea.
Right. And before we talk more about his agenda, then, Professor Min, perhaps you can give us a few details about the history of ties between Korea and the Netherlands.
Yes, several centuries ago, in the middle of the 17th century, Korea was introduced in the Netherlands through Henrik Hamel's journal. I think you remember it, and it is known as Hamelpyorygi in Korea. And Hamel unintentionally arrived in Korea in the 1650s, and he made a record about Korea in his journal. And in modern times, the Netherlands recognized South Korea in 1949 and officially launched diplomatic relations in 1961. And regarding the Korean War, the Netherlands participated in the Korean War as a part of the United Nations, and they sent over 5,000 troops. And unfortunately, about 120 people were killed in action, and 3 are still missing. And an event was held early this year to commemorate the sacrifice made during the Korean War. And concerning economic cooperation, the Netherlands, which has ASML, a world-class semiconductor equipment company, has been an important economic and technological partner of South Korea. And the two countries made an economic technology cooperation treaty in 1982. And the Netherlands is the largest investor in South Korea among EU members, and South Korea's second largest European trading partner, along with Germany. So these things clearly show that the Netherlands is an important economic partner of South Korea.
Right, which is why probably so last year Korea and the Netherlands agreed to upgrade their diplomatic relations into a strategic partnership. Could you give us a little bit of background information?
Right, that decision was made during the trip by Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte here in Seoul to have a bilateral summit with President Yoon, and that was in November last year. The two agreed to elevate their bilateral ties to a strategic partnership and adopted a joint statement on the establishment of such. That was an upgrade from a future-oriented and comprehensive partnership South Korea and the Netherlands concluded in 2016. Now, with the entrance into a strategic partnership, the two sides highlighted their aim for increased cooperation in the semiconductor and nuclear energy sectors and to lower vulnerabilities in supply chains. President Yoon back then had stressed that with the Netherlands being a powerhouse in semiconductor equipment production and South Korea being a leader in chips, the two countries' cooperation would not only complement each other's industries, but also help in stabilizing the overall global supply chain. So seeing eye to eye on that the two countries' relations are expanding from economic to strategic and security cooperation, President Yoon and his Dutch counterpart also agreed to work together in responding to North Korea's continuous military threats, as well as in working together regarding the Ukraine war.
Right. And Professor Min, prior to his departure, as briefly mentioned by Soa, President Yoon spoke of establishing a chip alliance with the Netherlands. What look to be the broader implications of such an alliance between the two countries?
Well, basically, I think setting up a chip alliance between South Korea and the Netherlands means that the two countries will closely work together for technological advancement and a stable supply chain in the semiconductor industry. The Netherlands is known for the cutting-edge equipment, and the South Korea has cutting-edge manufacturing capabilities for the semiconductors. So if they closely work together, they can maximize their complementary nature in the semiconductor value chain. So I expect that the two leaders will mainly talk about ways to improve cooperation and partnerships between governments, companies, and universities in the upcoming summit. And the President Yoon and the South Korean delegation, like Samsung Electronics Executive Chairman Lee Jae-yong and the SK Group Chairman Choi Jae-won, will visit the ASML's global headquarters in the country. So I think it will be a symbolic event to show to the global community that the two countries will enhance their cooperation to lead the industry. So taken together, I think these things will be the core of setting up a chip alliance between the two countries, and it will be an important momentum for South Korea to maintain the international global status in the semiconductor industry.
Right, and so this chip alliance was also addressed by Dutch Foreign Minister during an interview with the local daily in recent days, I understand. Could you tell us a bit about her remarks?
Right, Dutch Foreign Minister Hanke Bruin-Slot expressed her expectations on the South Korean president's visit to the Netherlands in an interview with the Korean Jungang Daily, in which she in particular highlighted the partnership between the Netherlands and South Korea in the chip sector. Bruin-Slot called South Korea a crucial part of the Netherlands' strategy of protecting and promoting its chip industry, referring to the two countries' key roles in this, what she called, extremely high-tech yet sensitive industry, as it is also an issue of national security. In fact, she specifically mentioned the Promote Protect Partner strategy, an approach referring to the promotion of production, working with partners, Korea being a partner in this case, and protection from others, and that involving policies like trade restrictions. The Netherlands' top diplomat hoped for a number of partnerships, including the signing of an MOU on bolstering the exchange of knowledge as well as talent in the semiconductor sector during President Yoon's visit. She said Seoul and The Hague share similar challenges in workforce development for present operations and R&D for next-generation technologies, adding the Netherlands wishes anxious to implement a working group on semiconductors between the two countries in a bid to discuss ways to promote the semiconductor sector, investment plans, as well as how to discuss spurring cooperation in the private sector.
Right. And moving forward, Professor Min, the Netherlands has placed its weight behind the U.S. with regard to curbing China's access to advanced chips. All that being said, do you suppose an alliance between Korea and the Netherlands could perhaps send a wrong message to neighboring China?
No, I don't think so, because the alliance between the two countries is just the symbolic or the rhetoric, the expression of the strengthening the bilateral cooperation for the semiconductor industry. And the setting up the chip alliance between the two countries, I think, has nothing to do with excluding any country from the global supply chain of the semiconductor industry. And it's just enhancing the cooperation between the two countries in order to maximize their complementary nature in the field. And such a strategic partnership is very important to maintain the two countries' competitiveness and secure the engine of the future economic growth. In addition, it has nothing to do with the US-China strategic competition in advanced technologies, because it's just a bilateral cooperation between the South Korea and Netherlands, and they try to improve their economic cooperation to maximize their economic interest and economic prosperity. So I don't see any reason why China will be uncomfortable with the economic partnership, bilateral partnership between South Korea and the Netherlands. So no worry about it at all.
Right, because it's an economic endeavor then. That being said, then, Professor Min, how can Korea, generally speaking, seek to perhaps promote its security interests with like-minded countries, while at the same time maintain its amiable relations with neighboring countries like China?
Well, basically, I think South Korea is trying to establish itself as a global pivotal state in the international stage now. And being a global pivotal state requires that South Korea play a bigger role and takes more responsibilities based on its own principles. And personally, I think the principles include universal values and norms like a rule of law, freedom, sovereignty, and prosperity. And in this respect, like-minded countries mean international partners who share those values and norms with South Korea. And it doesn't include China from the list. China can still join the group by observing the universal values and norms. Meanwhile, in the bilateral the relations, South Korea needed to maintain good relations with China. China is still a very important economic partner for South Korea, and China is one of the key players to exert influence about the security situation on the Korean Peninsula. So South Korea needed to make consistent efforts to maintain amicable relations with China. South Korea needed to communicate with China continuously and try to broaden understanding between the two countries. And meanwhile, I also think that China want to talk to the South Korea because China needs South Korea's cutting-edge technologies for its own economic prosperity. And China also wants South Korea not to get too much closer to the United States along with Japan and security matters. So we can see the room that the two countries, South Korea and China, can work together to maintain the amicable relationship.
Right. Professor Min, both the current Yoon administration as well as the former Moon administration, they placed quite a bit of emphasis on the importance of expanding Korea's defense industry. And President Yoon Suk Yeol has said that ensuring a stable chip supply is essential for this endeavor. In the long run, what do you believe is the significance of expanding Korea's arms exports?
So it's absolutely important, absolutely important. So personally, I strongly believe that strengthening South Korea's arms exports is vital to enhance South Korea's technological capabilities. As you know, nowadays, general purpose technology or multi-purpose technology is the core of future-oriented technologies or the national capabilities. For example, advanced countries like the United States first developed cutting-edge technologies for space and military. And they invest tremendous amounts of money in the field to develop the new technologies and then make efforts to commercialize them and make international standards and make good money out of them. And the cutting-edge military products require lots of semiconductors for the automated systems. So it means that military products and the cutting-edge technologies, they are interconnected to each other. So a stable chip supply chain is the foundation of the expanding defense industry and strengthening arms exports. And South Korea also needed to enhance its cooperation with other advanced countries in the defense industry, like the US, Japan, and the European Union. Technologies are rapidly changing nowadays, and improving international cooperation is the key to prevent South Korea from being left behind in the competition. So the bottom line here is who takes the lead in cutting-edge technologies will decide who will be prosperous and influential in the future.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, so on a light note, the Dutch foreign minister was speaking to the local media here. She also touched upon the growing interest in Korean studies among Dutch students. Tell us a bit about that.
Right. So the Dutch top diplomat in her earlier interview also mentioned the cultural aspect of the relationship between the Netherlands and South Korea, and highlighting the increase in Dutch students that learn Korean culture and the language. With that, she hoped for more people-to-people exchanges between South Korea and the Netherlands. The growing interest in Korean studies is evident in the number of applicants at Leiden University, one of the most prestigious education institutions in the Netherlands, as next year's applicants for Korean studies surpass the number of those who applied for Japanese studies for the first time ever. And riding on the K-wave trend, more and more people also enroll in Korean classes at Korean language schools in the Netherlands, and there are 3 of those in the country.
Right, good to know, I see. Professor Min, beyond President Yoon Suk Yeol's upcoming diplomatic mission to the Netherlands, the President himself has engaged in a remarkable number of summits this particular year, that's 2023. Which diplomatic interactions, Professor Min, do you think were most productive?
Well, as you mentioned, President Yoon has got an active summit diplomacy throughout this year. And among them, personally, I think ROK-US Summit and Camp David Trilateral Summit are very important for South Korea's security and prosperity. Specifically in the bilateral summit held in April in Washington, D.C., the 2 leaders, ROK and US, they agreed to strengthen its military cooperation and U.S. extended deterrence against North Korea's growing military threats. And they also agreed to enhance their economic and technological cooperation for their economic prosperity. In addition, in the Camp David Summit, the 3 countries, South Korea, U.S., and Japan, they also agreed to strengthen their security cooperation against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. And they also agreed to improve their technological cooperation, like semiconductors. As you know, each country has different strengths and capabilities in the semiconductor industry. U.S. is known for their foundational technologies and design capabilities, and South Korea has world-class manufacturing capabilities, and Japan is known for the parts, material, and equipment. So if they closely work together, they will maximize their complementary nature and will create synergy effect. And last but not least, based on the diplomatic accomplishments of this year, personally, I expect that South Korea will improve its relations with China and other countries next year.
Right, hopefully a trilateral summit between President Yoon and his counterparts from China and Japan early next year. So speaking about global leaders, I understand President Yoon Suk Yeol topped a list by the New York Times recently.
Yes, who would have thought that the president and K-pop idol group NewJeans would be listed on the same ranking. So President Yoon Suk Yeol was named as one of the 71 most stylish people of 2003. Actually, not all of them were people, but this was according to the New York Times. And it was probably a quite surprising result, as I don't think President Yoon's style has been making that many headlines during his presidency. But different from many others ranked on the list who are noted for their fashion style, President Yoon received this title for singing American Pie at the White House when he was there for a state visit. You can see it right here in the video. The New York Times said his pitch-perfect performance was worthy of American Idol. President Joe Biden and Yoon both had personal memories of the song, and President Yoon's performance won a big round of applause. Also, President Biden commented on X, or former Twitter, that said President Yoon, a man of many talents. Meanwhile, President Yoon and King Charles III were the only heads of state on the list of most stylish people this year.
I see. All right, so as always, thank you very much for that. And Professor Min, as always, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, well, on that note, we end Monday's edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. Do join us again same time tomorrow.